They can hear me.
Yes. All right. So we are using old-fashioned technology, not old because it's new. It's Ryan's cell phone, and we're going to use the cell phone as the microphone. We will not be using the we will not be using the microphones in the room, so people will have to speak loudly enough. People online, you'll have to adjust your volume so that we're not blasting you out as we talk into this. And it will be hard, it will be impossible for people in the room to hear your comments because you're coming in through the cell phone. If people online could submit their comments through chat, we'll be able to read them. So that is how we're going to proceed. And the beginning is, I'm going to go through the agenda review again. The board business, we are going to get subcommittee reports from the 4 committees and the national liaison. Susan will be talking about the January subcommittee meeting dates and the leadership election process. We take public comment at 10:15, a break at 10:30, come back at 10:45 with board business for future meetings, action items. We adjourn, the meeting concludes for the HAB at 11:15. At 1 o'clock, the link, if we have it back up working, will occur. And if not, we'll be using the cell phone again to talk about the work of the IM on fiscal year 26 cleanup priorities. So thanks for your flexibility with this. Who would like to go first on the committee reports? In the room, do we have a presenter? Do you want to go first, Pam? Great, thanks.
Okay. I'll just prop it against my copy. Okay.
So people online.
Can, she's got to move her head. Can you hear me? Yes, thumbs up. Okay. All right. So I have a report that I'm going to share with you, and then I reference information from a newspaper article in the Tri-City Herald written by Annette Carey. It was published on July 31st. And there's so much detail in it that Josh has made copies for you. It's in the back of the room, just to let you know. Okay, so I'm starting out with what's going on in Congress. Congress has 2 committees that deal with budget. One is the Authorization Committee in both the House and the Senate. They have passed respective 2024 National Defense Authorization bills in July. As of last week, the House and the Senate have entered into formal conference negotiations as lawmakers work to finish and pass the NDAA for next year. It is considered a must-pass bill. It authorizes all defense activities from pay raises for troops to weapons systems procurement. Democrat and Republican leaders in both chambers of Congress have expressed that passing NDAA is the top priority for December. It's crucial to the authorization of energy-related national security programs. It includes authorization for the DOE Environmental Management Cleanup Program and the Office of Legacy Management. So in addition to authorizing committees, there are budget committees. And as I mentioned, this was drawn from Annette Carey's article. The Senate Appropriations Committee is chaired by Senator Murray. They have 12 subcommittees like the House does. All of the Senate subcommittee bills were passed last summer and were approved by the full committee. It is the first time since 1918 that all 12 bills passed. That's remarkable leadership on the part of our senator. In the Senate bill, Hanford will receive a record of just over $3 billion in fiscal 2024, up $195 million from current funding. The House is proposing a Hanford budget of $2.8 billion, which is below the Biden administration request of $2.9 billion. The Senate's proposed budget would increase spending for Hanford work under RL by $36 million to just over $1 billion. Spending for the Hanford environmental cleanup work under ORP would increase from $160 million to 1.89 billion. The Washington State Department of Ecology stated in the article that the Tri-City Herald, stated, although a record high budget is proposed by the Senate, it is still not enough to meet legal requirement and deadlines for Hanford. They went on to say it would require nearly 3.8 billion in fiscal 2024 for a compliant budget. Okay, now on to other sites around the complex. The waste isolation pilot plant ventilation upgrade. DOE has reported that commissioning is underway for the safety significant ventilation system, which will triple underground airflow at the WIP facility in New Mexico. This is the only licensed facility in the United States for disposition of transuranic waste, and it is underground in New Mexico in a salt formation. Testing began in October for some of the electrical cables that will supply power to the motor spans and other equipment for the ventilation system. WIP is located near Carlsbad, New Mexico. As I said, it's the only licensed underground disposal site for true waste. Through the commissioning process, they will test components of the system and integrate them into ongoing WIP operations. They plan to complete it next year. As we have observed at our waste treatment plant, incrementally, systems will be turned over for testing. The new system in New Mexico will produce 40,000 cubic feet of airflow per minute, up from 170,000 today. That seems to be the reverse. I'll look into that. This will substantially increase the amount of waste that can be placed in permanent storage. They will be able to conduct disposal activities, maintenance, and mining to operate the new disposal areas at the same time. The new ventilation system will work with the new underground utility shaft, which was recently completed. I think I reported on that at the last meeting. In Oak Ridge, Tennessee, they have a significant problem with mercury contamination in groundwater. A mercury treatment facility is now 50% complete. It is being built to remediate mercury levels in the East Fork Poplar Creek. It has been designed to treat 3,000 gallons of water per minute and includes a 2 million gallon storage tank to collect stormwater. The site contractor cleared away the former biology complex comprised of 11 structures dating back to 1940s. This opens up new land to new missions. Okay, cleanup progress at Los Alamos. And this is my last section. In fiscal
Okay. 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 Very good. We can hear.
Okay, I only have one paragraph left here.
Okay.
And this is in regarding Los Alamos. In FY23, they completed 59 shipments of transuranic waste to WIP. They disposed of more than 4,300 cubic meters of true mixed and low-level radioactive waste. They retrieved and initiated size reduction activities for a set of buried corrugated metal pipes containing transuranic waste to prepare them for shipment to WIP. Nearly 42 million gallons of hexavalent chromium contaminated groundwater was also treated, and all regulatory milestones were met. So I just wanted to add personal comment here. For those of you that have been engaged with Hanford for a long time and remember the 61810 burial ground, where we had metal pipes, vertical pipe units that had challenging waste in it. When we, the local government people, were at Los Alamos years ago, they showed us where these VPUs were at, and they said they had no idea what to do with them. Someday, see what.
Arnold, Fritzy, report, you be right. So read Tom's every other so every other syllable come through. That's what they're hearing. Every other syllable is coming in. So if we can, yeah. Thanks. Okay, so. Oh, that was. Are we still getting feedback? Can you hear us online? Yes, okay. So reading the report that Tom sent in, Carm, and extra brownie points for anybody who can give me this acro on the spot. Cleanup and risk mitigation, is that is that the right acro for Carm? Okay, has a meeting on Monday, January 8th. The day is being shared with Lid, so we are working on the agenda right now. It'll be something, right now it looks like it'll be like Lid's opening, joint presentation in the middle, and Carm at the end. However, both committees are welcome to attend the full session. There will be a briefing on groundwater cleanup and the status on groundwater, an open forum, and committee business. Tracy Arnold also sent in succinct points. Oh, and thank you. Presentation on transuranic waste. So that is the joint presentation for Lids and Carm. The Communication Outreach and Engagement Committee will next meet on January 9th. There will be discussing environmental justice, communications, engagement, and public involvement. We'll also be looking at risk communications and strategies with a joint effort with CARM at a future meeting for those presentations and reviewing the public involvement survey results. So, Rob, if you want to give an update on your meeting.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hey Pam, what is the total DOE EM budget this year? Do you know? $8 billion and we're getting 3. Thank you. Okay. All right. This is Rob Davis speaking, chair of the TWIST committee, which is basically the tanks committee. We have been struggling a little bit with generating some advice on the grout issues. And so one of the things we did in planning for this next season of presentations is that we submitted a list that we got, or essentially I put together with Rob here from other members in the TWIST and questions that they wanted to address. So I'm going to read these. They're 6 paragraphs. They're relatively short. Okay, this is what the tanks would like to have presentations made to us in order for us to either become more knowledgeable about it, what they're doing for the problem solving, as well as some concern areas that we just don't know what's going on. So more information is needed on grout, performance factors, knowledge, maturity, experience, and technology. description of different blends used at different waste sites and waste chemistries. What are the difficulties that we encounter with solidifying the Hanford high pH chemistry? Concerns about quality, safety, and regulation of a private company was also mentioned, as well as can grout performance meet the federal regulations? So that would be one of our requested presentations from the DOE or DOE contractors. With the issuance of the FFRDC reports and the AOA analysis of alternatives, we would like a discussion on the analysis of really the big picture of, it's very clear to us now that we don't have enough vitrification capacity to vitrify all of our wastes. So some of our waste is going to have a supplemental treatment. The supplemental treatment has been studied in different levels, the GAO, the Savannah River Group, the others have basically concluded that we're going to have a lower cost alternative to the supplemental waste. And so we would like to look at what the big picture is for the analysis of waste processing alternatives, the difference between grout and vitrification. And I believe at this point, fluidized bed reforming is out totally. And how does this relate to our test bed initiative? Programmatic discussion on phase 1 and phase 2 would be nice. At one point, there was a phase 3. This is a test, so what will the test bed, what will it demonstrate? How does it integrate with the FFRDC study on slaw waste? Slaw waste is LAW that's been decanted or siphoned off the top of the high-level waste tanks and then run through the TISCR or a new advanced TISCR operation. And again, a better description of what a slaw is what's needed, and slaw waste. Also, the third paragraph would be reporting on tank integrity. Long-term projections for more than 50 years for 2 limiting critical factors identified in past inspections, specifically the spalling of concrete and exposed rebar, reinforcement bars seen in inspections on the single shell tanks. And the underside on the bottom of the tank, we've had some under deposit corrosion cracking, and we really need to better understand how with these indicators we're going to justify another 50 years for all the rest of the tanks, or what are we doing? And by the way, people all should remember that every 5 years they issue a new tank integrity report. So please make that available to yourself online and just skim it. The fourth paragraph here is we would like a discussion on the future infrastructure and retrieval technology for pumping waste feed to the DF law, meaning the cross-site transfer. For years and years, we've been told the cross-site transfer is dead, it's broken, it's leaky, it's whatever, and it's not been used. And I believe that we need to think about, or we believe that we need to have a more serious discussion on what can be used. In the latter days at the Hanford site, been using hose and hose transfers, which are basically top run hoses to move the waste from one point to another, where the cross-site transfer would be a permanent ASME coated, stainless steel or carbon steel welded construction and seismically designed, that sort of thing. The last two, the first one was orphan waste from the TISCR processing has been brought up a number of times. What are the projected volumes? What is the long-term plan for the crystalline silicon titanate demineralized material? Some people suggest that it can be just added into the high-level waste melter and become part of the waste, but we don't have any. This came from Kruger, remember, he was the technical expert for the Department of Energy on glass, and he made some very strong statements that he felt that we could just take that all crystalline material, there's no organic, and put it into the high-level waste melter and handle that orphan waste in that way. But yet, we want some discussion on that. Is it really practical? What would they have to build to do that? And then the last thing was the thing that we've all been waiting for is some discussion on the holistic negotiations on a generic plan for the single shell tanks called the response plan. And it's supposed to be through Ecology's review in a month ago or so. I don't expect they're ready because I haven't heard anything about it, but that would be nice to have along with seeing how this leak response plan could be incorporated into the site-wide permit revision 9A coming up. So it's been a busy session with our committee. These issues they're not just one or two persons. They seem to be resonating through a number of us. And so that's about the end of it. Thank you.
Do we have? Yes, go ahead, Ryan.
I just want to clarify, Rob, what you said about holistic negotiations and the leak response plan. So the agreed order had several action items, and one of them was the leak response plan, which was submitted to Ecology in August by Energy, and so we're currently reviewing that. So it's separate from holistic negotiations. It's actually going to be rolled into the Hanford site-wide permit Rev 9 comment period. So I just want to make that clarification. So it's separate from the holistic negotiations. It's actually going to be rolled into the public comment period for the Hanford site-wide permit.
All right, so we're going to open this for questions. Go ahead.
Robbie mentioned Al Kruger. I haven't thought about him in a while. Is he still at Hanford?
Yes, he is.
It would be awesome if the committee could chat with him again. He's absolutely brilliant.
I'll take that request back, Pam. Thank you.
Other people?
Just for others' information, if you go to our website where we have, you go back a couple of years, you'll find a presentation by Al on the making glass. It's very, very informative. Please make that available to yourself. Al is, it's quite lengthy, but he does discuss a little bit about the silicon titanate in his 62-page PowerPoint presentation. It was wonderful. We actually gave him an accommodation letter for that. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. It was wonderful, but we did. We voted on, and the board passed a letter to thank him for his details and his patience with us and that. And yeah,
Fantastic. Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if I've been fortunate or misfortunate, but what Rob is talking about is not exactly a brand new subject. I used to chair a group called the Energy Community Alliance, and they put me on something called the Environmental Management Advisory
Could you
Board.
speak into the mic?
Sure.
Thanks.
So again, I used to, pay attention to different boards and commissions that I got appointed to. And so at one point I was the chairperson of something called the Energy Community Alliance. We wrote a letter to the state of Washington and to representatives, which didn't exactly concur, I suppose, with the Department of Ecology's perspective. And then it got pretty entertaining, I thought. But it's kind of like looking for the Holy Grail. I think Department of Ecology, state of Washington relies on some studies that were in the 70s, maybe even the early 80s, in regards to the ability of grout to contain certain substances. I will tell you that the people that produce grout and encapsulate things, the science has changed radically. And so what I think people, the reluctance of the state of Washington, there's a lack of trust with the old, Department of Energy, so I get that. I don't know whether we're ever going to cure that. But the idea of relying on old science is, from at least the Energy Communities Alliance, didn't make a lot of sense, especially from a financial perspective. And so, you get into the idea, well, is this, what's high level, right? I mean, we had this debate a little bit the other day, but this debate's been going on for 4 years too, right? And so, yeah, but always, I'm not, well, again, by not making a decision, it's making a decision. I mean, that's just a policy kind of perspective. So everybody has been looking for what you're requesting. I think it's out there, but I think there's a reluctance sometimes for different governmental agencies when it doesn't match up with their own, I don't know, viewpoint. I'll use that word. It's not that it's not there. It's just you haven't asked the right question, or they don't exactly hand it out to you because it may or may not disprove, but you don't know. That's part of the beauty of policy and politics. So, Robert, this question has been asked, like you say, forever. And it's, you know, I used to think money mattered, but you run out of resources. Kind of answers Rose's question. Why don't we have enough money to fund what is necessary to clean up? Well, because you're in competition with the rest of the United States for dollars. And I think that the push, you know, you can do public records requests and folder requests to get that kind of information. But you would think that your partners would work with you, whether it's the Department of Energy, whether it's the Department of Ecology for the state of Washington, to see what data we actually have to address some of your questions. Because I think a lot of it's out there, but it may not meet with the policy objectives of certain people. So, you know, I hate to say politics and money, you know, go hand in hand, and sometimes they actually influence the role of science. Weird. But that's kind of what happens. So, Rob, I applaud your team's effort to actually get to what people actually need to make decisions. And again, there are competing interests, right? And so if you don't get it, again, well, you got to consider why not. Right? So I'll just throw that out there because I'll tell you, we tried. Pam, I don't know, you probably have access to the ECA letter that we could send to the group, and then the state's response, and then our response. If we have that, it's kind of an interesting dialogue about how all these decisions were made, not only from a state perspective, but the role of various advocacy groups to work with the state of Washington to write letters in opposition, I guess, to ECA's position. So I think those are valuable tools for everybody to look at, even your group, to get a better understanding of the potential conflict that's involved in these sort of things.
Thank you, Ryan. And then we'll go to Richard and James.
I appreciate the perspective, but just want to remind HAB folks to please not speak on behalf of ecology. We will be coming to the HAB in springtime, I think, to talk about the RD&D permit, hopefully, if timing permits, with energy, to talk about grout and some of our perspectives and concerns. I just wanted to raise the point you said real quick about relying on reports from the 70s and 80s. I can't speak to everything ecology references, but I know one big report that we look back on is Energy's own EIS from 2012, which I think is a little sooner than the 70s. Thanks.
All right, I'm taking some notes here. Richard.
Hey, Rob, just again, because of the realignment of the committees, LIDS, the D is disposal. So if there is a discussion of grout, a lot of your questions, you're talking about grout's performance, acceptance criteria, et cetera, that's over on the LID side. We should do it together because the key comes down to is the other aspect of grout is the DOT requirements, what shipping containers, if it's going to be shipped as liquids off-site, what's a shipping container? Is it highway route controlled? What's a curie limit? Curies per gallon, curies per shipment, things of that nature. So those are things that would be over on the lid side rather than on the tank side. We can join it and then decide how to split it, because you got to remember, tanks, they're starting up vit plants. You guys have a lot of other things on your plate. So it's better for us to share that and, parse it out appropriately.
All right, so to Lindsay and then James.
Thank you, Richard. I believe that we have committed DOE and ecology to bring the briefing on grout to the full board when it's appropriate. As we move forward to planning for the subcommittee meetings, we'll ensure that the LIDS committee is included in any continued dialogue or briefings.
James?
Well, I'm new to, sorry, I'm new to HAB, so I'm sorry I haven't been involved in any discussions, but yeah, I came up to Hanford to work in P&L when they still had one N, and to work on the grout program, and it was brilliant. And we had formulations that worked as good as glass. And then more recently in 2011, 2012, we did a bunch of formulations for law grout. And again, they perform wonderfully. So yeah, gets back at the age-old, redefining the waste and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I need to talk about this more, but there's been so much work done on grout. It's not funny. Also recently, not just the old stuff, but much more recently.
So are there any questions online? Go back, Richard, do you have another question? And then I'm going to check online. I have not seen anything. And Tom and Tracy, I will come back to you to ask if you want to speak in your own voice for the committees.
Lindsay, just a response back to you. Because advice generates in a subcommittee, it's best that we have a subcommittee presentation level on grout rather than the full board, because it's a little bit more so that we can develop advice if it's appropriate.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, questions online, last check. And then I will go to Tom and then Tracy to ask if you want to speak to the committee meetings in January. All set? No, I'm working on, that was absolutely next. Thank you. There's a lot of moving parts here. So Tom's all set. Michelle or Tracy, do you want to add in anything to community outreach? She's good. And then Richard, are you presenting for LIDS? Sorry, Rebecca, it's just been a scattered morning. My oversight. Go ahead.
Well, I can start it off and then Richard can add whatever he would like. So yeah, I'm Rebecca Holland and I'm the chair for the LIDS committee and Richard is the vice chair. I think we've already kind of talked about some of the topics that were going to be presented or asked to be presented at January, I believe it's January 8th. We're having a joint committee meeting with CARM, I believe is what it's called now. Trying to get all these acronyms, but they're all new to me now. So yesterday we had the presentation from the Hanford Workforce Engagement Center, which hopefully you guys all enjoyed that or learned something. I know I learned a couple things. And I believe that Lindsay's going to be checking in. I did talk with them after we took the break yesterday. And as far as my request to have the committee members, if there is interest, to go and actually just see the Workforce Engagement Center and just kind of tour. It's a small facility, so she told me probably eight to 10 people max. And I don't think that there's any great fear that we're going to have like people beating down the door or anything. So yeah, if that's something that you guys would be interested in, they are open to that. So I think it would be, a good thing. If not, then that's all good too. I will get some more of these pamphlets from them though for our next committee meeting, just so you guys can have these. I did have a question last night about how the Workforce Engagement Center is funded. And I wasn't exactly sure. I thought possibly by the Department of Labor, but I was not totally sure about that. So that's something that I will circle back around on and try to find that out. Actually, maybe give Heather Goldie a call, or maybe even if Lindsay, I'm not positive.
Yeah, I don't have the answer off the top of my head, but I'll definitely take that back and close the loop.
Okay.
And then also, I just wanted to say, if there are more than 8 to 10 people who are interested in touring the HWEC facility, I believe that Heather, she committed to doing multiple sessions. And so we can have 2 or 3 groups if the board is interested.
Okay, thank you. And then also we did, I got an email, I believe it was last week, talking about the topics for the next committee meeting. I did add in a couple of items there. Being that we are doing the infrastructure, I did add the 300 area at the fire station, which we had put in a piece of our advice. When was that? 3 years ago, under the HSEP committee. We talked about the road coming from the 300 area as far as the emergency responders being able to get out and the dangers that it causes for pedestrians walking through there as well as vehicles. And at that time, the plan was to remove that 300 area fire station. Now with the status of the 324 building, and who knows how much longer, it's going to be there a while. So, and also we have the 325 building and we have PN&L facilities also down there as well. So that was something that we, or that I asked to have revisited. And I believe, Lindsay, that you said that you were going to have a presentation or someone come speak to us about that.
Correct. I was going to take that back and have somebody come in the future. So I'm not sure that it will be addressed in January, but let me close the loop with Jeff Sedgwick, and then I will give you a call.
Okay. Okay. And then one last item, I did attend the Hanford Dialogue meeting last night. I seen several of you there. I thought it interesting, being that now this committee has kind of a new scope as well. The disposal, one of the breakout sessions was on the test bed initiative and the I believe 2,000 gallons of waste that they're going to try to, do some kind of a, demonstration project on. What I found interesting was the liquid waste that is going to be put into totes and then shipped to, a disposal facility. And there were quite a few comments about, why don't you grout it first before you move liquid waste across, the highways and the transportation portion of that. So that'll be something that should be probably on this committee's, the radar as well. So I found it interesting myself. I was glad someone else asked the question because I thought maybe I'm not understanding this right. But yeah, it would be good to have a presentation on that as well when the timing is right. And Richard, I don't know if you have anything else to add.
Well, that was what my comment to Tanks was, the joint talking grout and the shipment, especially if it's going to ship as liquid. My background, I've been a DOT shipper in the past, and I understand it's very convoluted, very, very specific. But the only other thing, you didn't say the overall topic. The overall topic of the January 8th meeting for just lids is the infrastructure. So I'm sure I didn't get any details back, but I suggested what it'd be. But it'll be talking about a lot of things that were just slightly talked about yesterday in the overview that Mr. Vance gave us. So other than that, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, Mr. Brian did give a little bit of an overview yesterday as far as like the electrical utilities and water lines and things like that. And I'm not sure if there'll be more of a presentation or get more down in the details as far as that. I would ask that at our committee meeting that we have some copies of our last couple of advices that we issued from the HSEP committee as far as infrastructure and the traffic safety issues. We were given an answer from the Department of Energy when we asked to have the road widened, going from the Y barricade out due to it's aging, just like Mr. Vance said yesterday. And they're just doing, road repairs out there. But, we've asked for years to have that road had another lane added because of the amount of traffic that is out there. It's a 2-lane road. going from the Y barricade out. And it seems to me that the number of employees going to be traveling that road is not going to be going down, which was the prediction, was the answer back to our committee at the time when we issued that advice. So I don't foresee that. Of course, I look at my crystal ball and I can see, if we're going to be operating a VIP plant and going 24/7 operations, that we're going to have a lot more issues with transportation on the site. So if we could just have those pieces of advice and the response back from the Department of Energy so that we could have some talking points at our meeting.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, about that liquid being grouted. Yes, it should definitely be grouted. The problem is, my understanding is that if you grout that liquid, it's a treatment. And so you have to get a bunch of approval before you can do that. Whereas if you ship the liquid, it's already approved to be treated at the site that when it arrives, it's already approved. So you don't need any additional approvals. So again, it's mainly I don't want to call it a bureaucratic thing, but it's a bureaucratic thing. It's not, yeah, it should be grouted, but that would then involve a whole new set of permits and stuff like that.
All right. So are there any other comments or questions online for any of the committees, national liaison? Robert?
I was interested in DOZ comment. The young lady who read John Wagner's comments from back in '94. What the board was originally designed to do was to provide independent advice to the Department of Energy and other stakeholders. And, part of what I do in my real world is you watch people, right? Just to watch observations. And so the response in regards to the DOEs, I think they're having the holistic negotiations with a bunch of other players. Good, I guess. But the point is, when you hear somebody tell you, we'll tell you when you need to know, that seems to be 180 degrees out from what the board was originally designed to do. And so I'm always fascinated by people's acceptance. Again, if you look at the what our bylaws suggest and that kind of stuff, it's an interesting, it's a legal perspective in a way, but if the job is actually not to be talked down to and told what to think, and you can control decision-making by the flow of information, right? Isn't that kind of what people do? And so when I hear that and I look around the room, that concerns me because it's not that I don't trust anybody, but I like to think for myself. And I look at the members of the board, I think all of us think, well, we're here for a reason. And whether we're technical people or policy people or wherever we're here for and who we represent, I kind of like to think that collectively, we're not dumb. And the idea of having somebody tell me when they're ready to tell me and control the information, it just troubles me. And maybe that's how this works nowadays. But it's not necessarily critical because everybody's got a role. I'm just saying, from my observational perspective, are we actually giving advice based on what the information that we can actually see independently? Or are we waiting for people who may have already made a decision to give you the information that supports their decision? It's just an observation. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong, but I think it's something we need to consider as a group.
And with that, we are wrapping up. Susan is going to be presenting moving forward. What I will say, especially at federal levels, is that there are many levels of decision making that have different levels of engagement. So with consent decrees, it's a legal structure, and even this committee works in phased approaches where a subcommittee hears an information, decides whether an IM team is needed. The IM team works together, brings it forward to the board. So there are multiple levels of decision making, multiple levels of process in reaching those decisions. Point well taken on that. And thank you to the committees for their work and the briefings today and your patience as we work through, yet again, technical challenges, but we are here. And Susan, I know that you were going to be speaking on the January dates and the subcommittee leadership election process, so we turn to you.
Well, I'm going to also punt to you, Judy. Okay, so hold on.
Okay.
The dates for the January committee meetings are on Monday, January 8th. It's a combined meeting of LIDS and CARM. And on Tuesday, January 9th, it's CO and then TWIST. Now, Judy, when can people expect to see the agendas?
So we are working those, the Carmen Lids, the agenda concepts went out, and I have talked to Co and Lids has had some online conversation about agenda concepts, and so that the next iteration for that will be coming out tomorrow. I'm going to circulate it to Lindsay first, just to make sure that my presentations align with hers, and then it'll go out to the committees and including the chair and vice chair of that.
Okay, so when can the board members expect to see the committees?
Once that comes back to you,
Do you have a date? Give me
Roughly
give me a
2
tip.
weeks prior to the meeting.
Thank you.
and sooner
I
if we
mean,
can.
because we got the holidays. I mean, we're about to
Yes.
go into the Christmas holidays, and as we all have experienced, basically from December 15th to right after New Year's,
Okay,
it's dead time.
I would recommend just holding the day. We have 2 committees in one day, so roughly 9 to 4:30. I would block your calendars. And like I said, I would expect that facilitation, get out those agendas 2 weeks prior to those committee meetings.
to the full board.
So does anybody have any questions about the upcoming committee meetings in January?
Online, just checking?
Yes, Rob.
I'm just making sure, Lindsay, that you have our requests.
I have
for
your
that meeting.
requests correct. And so Judy will wrap back around with you for that draft agenda if you have not seen it in your email yet.
Right, right.
And then we can talk next week or even after
Right,
this
right,
meeting.
right,
But I do
right.
have your list, and
Thank
as discussed, we're going to have that tank integrity briefing, and then System Plan 10 will hopefully come in March.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, and then if, just for planning purposes, the next committee meetings after that will be March 5th and 6th. So it's kind of like alternating months, because January we have committee meetings, committee week, then February we have full board meeting, and then March we will have the next round of committee meetings. So just if you want to, for those of you that plan further out. And then the next topic was subcommittee leadership elections process. During the January committee meetings, you'll probably be talking about it. The March meeting is when the elections will occur. You can self-nominate or you can nominate someone else. You just notify the facilitation team. They will confirm that the individual that you're nominating is willing to serve. So, no volunteering. And then the elections will be held during the March period.
And those will be standing items on each committee agenda for January or nominations. Also, I'm looking at time, and we could go for a 10-minute break and come back on public comment. Let's do that. So we will come back at 10:15. That's in 10 minutes, so that, Richard, just hold.
Just a
Richard.
quick question. Will the issue of alternates and chair leadership be resolved by March?
I was speaking with Ryan about this morning, and the TPA agencies will be discussing everything that we heard, all of your comments after today's meeting, and we will have a path forward.
I did confirm with my primary that he has no intention of being in leadership.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we will break. Oh, Rebecca, maybe we won't.
I just want to say that if anybody on our committee has any questions concerning tanks and tank integrity, bring them to me. I'll put them down on a list. I'm preparing for Lindsay. Thank you.
Rebecca? Pass? All right. Online? Then We will reconvene here exactly at 10:15 for public comment. We'll check and make sure that online and in the room for public comment opportunity, and then go into the board business. Which needs to be here, sorry. All right, so thank you. Thanks for working with us on a slight adjustment. We're going to be opening up for comment, public comment. I want to check online also to see if anyone has public comment. In the room, we have Susan Luckband, and we'll open with that. So Susan Luckband, we're opening up for public comment. Yep.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Susan Leckband. I'm a former chair and vice chair of the board. I wanted to thank you all for your commitment to this board, and I also wanted to let you know that 2024 is the 30th year of the Hanford Advisory Board. And I would like to remind all of you that there are at least 300 pieces of advice over the years, some of them incredibly seminal as to moving forward with the board's desires, and that desire has always been at the forefront, the best, most economic, safest cleanup possible, protecting human health and the environment. So as you go through and develop each piece of advice with your opinion, I would encourage you to look at it through that lens as you go through and working together and collaborating, and you're all really going to enjoy that. I also want to encourage you to continue to ask questions. The major body of all of that advice itself is very well informed. We were provided information. We were provided the opportunity to use subject matter experts, bring them from the outside, DOE, EPA, and the Environmental Protection Agency provided their opinions. Everybody really wants the best cleanup possible. Try as you can to look at the advice you're developing through that lens and put the politics aside if you can. Politics and money go hand in hand. We kind of understand that, but I really do encourage you to join a committee, stay involved, and read the past of advice. Some of it will really help you as you develop new advice. Thank you, and thank you for your commitment.
And thank you, Susan, for the work that you have done in the past. I wasn't privileged to be a part of it, but thank you for your ongoing participation. Daniel, I see a comment or.
I'm going to respectfully disagree with Susan Leckband. The best cleanup possible is not at all what I want. In radiation protection, we have a fundamental principle that's called ALARA, as low as reasonably achievable, economic, social, and technological factors being taken into account. This has been part of the law in radiation protection since the 70s. And the reasonably achievable, it's not as low as possible. No way. It's what is reasonable. Should we spend money on attempting to make Hanford pristine, or maybe should we fund education, medical research, Institute for Peace, or whatever else, women with infant children? It's never as clean as possible. So that is, it just absolutely goes against my my big picture approach to how we can spend taxpayer money. And so as clean as possible is as expensive as possible. And I do not support that. I support reasonable.
And thank you for that, which speaks to the importance of words, right? And the meaning that is attached to words. And when we say in our ground rules, assume noble intent. I really want to underscore the importance of words because there is, spirit of the law and requirements of the law. So the spirit of it and actually getting down into the nuts and bolts requires an assessment of trade-offs. Thanks for raising that. And Susan is nodding her nodding along like the spirit of those words. And this is exactly the articulation point where these different perspectives and say, wait, be careful what you're asking for, be careful what you're saying. So very well demonstrated. With that, we're going into any other comments, questions online. Let me just check. All right, we are turning to board business, board needs, and new action item review. Susan will kick that off. Identifying potential topics and products for the next HAB meeting, which will be in February. Then we'll be hearing from Jeff Wyatt on a status of the IM team for fiscal year 26 cleanup. We have one slide to bring up. And that will inform the discussion for the IM team meeting this afternoon. So Susan.
Does any of the have, let me start over. Does anyone have any additional board needs that they have not already spoken and requested? I think we've pretty well covered that topic already.
And we're checking online. So if there's anything that people wanted to add in, there have been items, Rebecca spoke of some, Rob Davis, others, those notes have been taken down, will be revisited as to timing and what opportunities. Yesterday, there was discussion about items that were going forward with the tribe through the cultural stewardship process. Anything else to add on that? All right.
Do we have any new actions from this meeting, from the last day and a half?
The actions from the day and the half, well, let's go back in time. So the committee items will be addressed and incorporated into the future. There is a commitment for the first meeting after new membership that there be a presentation on tribal considerations. Richard, I see your hand. Yes, go ahead. So let's do Ryan, Robert, Chris, and Richard. Sorry if that wasn't the exact sequence. Go ahead.
Just to reiterate one of the TPA agency's action items, it's, again, we're going to go back and have that conversation with your guys' feedback and comments about the topic of concern yesterday, but primaries and alternates. So I just want to reiterate that that's an action item we're going to go back and take and follow up on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
The one thing that I'd really like to do is from last night's Hanford discussions by DOE and ecology. I think we owe them some feedback for the people that went there. We owe you some feedback. And can I show of hands, everybody that showed up? I mean, there's a lot of people here, so we should be able to garner some comments from everybody on some good feedback for you, because I felt that for me, part of my feedback is they actually had people there that can answer their questions. That was kind of different than the previous ones. And I was good. The other thing is this is a luxury for all of us, because we were elbow to elbow, shoulder to shoulder with the CEOs and the heads of the entire site here. And they see us in our face and our eyes and they know, and you can talk to them and you realize that they have similar interests in what we all are garnering here. So anyway, my feedback is thumbs up, and so could we maybe take a moment, Susan, and ask?
Go ahead.
Can I step in for a second? This is actually a topic that is on the COE agenda for January. So I would encourage anyone who would like to provide feedback to come to that meeting in January, and so we can hear what folks thought regarding the Hanford dialogue.
So friendly amendment, just what I've heard is that there's a couple ways to raise this. If we, I think that there's a request that if we have time, let's do a quick round robin. We do have board business, so let's
Yeah.
let's hold that. Let's hear the comments, Chris and Richard.
Yesterday, I mentioned that there was an operations group that spent a long time revising our ground rules to be in sync with all the documents out of EMSSAB and Memorandum of Understanding with the tri-party agencies and so on. And I think the ops team realized that we weren't done and that there's opportunity for that group to continue, albeit perhaps with new members. And I think in view of the discussion yesterday regarding alternates and speaking, that Susan, maybe this would be, and Ryan and Lindsay, maybe this would be something that you could consider, not just a tri-party agency speaking among themselves, but reformulating that operations work group, again, with perhaps new members, so that there's kind of a more of a consensus going forward among the HAB and tri-party agencies as to what we think is the best path forward regarding all of these. We certainly left that when Mike Birkenbile was there, we left that as an option and an expectation that this group would be an ongoing group as new issues arose, and certainly some arose yesterday. So that would be my suggestion.
Okay, thank you for that. And Richard, you had your
Yeah,
sign up.
my question, since I was in a 2.5 hour council meeting last night, how many members of the public, excluding HAB, did you see? And if we do a round robin, give the impression. It's because what I'm suggesting, EPA's request of an evening meeting rather than evening HAB meeting, but such as what happened last night, that being the evening entity, which is usually a little bit better attended.
If
I didn't get the exact head count, and I don't have the differentiation between HAB members and non-HAB members, but I think the rough estimate we had was about 50 attendees outside of agency staff. And obviously I saw a number of you raise your hands, so maybe 25, 30-ish were public. I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, but we do have the attendee list we're going to look at, and we'll get a better picture for that COE meeting.
I'm just thinking that would be a better option than, and maybe not have the state of the site presentation at the HAB meeting, just do HAB business.
all right, that's very good. So I am going to work through this. Board needs a new action item review. Let's go back to the action item. We've heard a few comments here, but to your question on the board business updates, those action items were the presentation on, oh, Chris, are you up again, or is that, okay. The first meeting after the orientation regarding a tribal presentation, that the land acknowledgement is being dealt with through conversations with the tribe and the stewardship office. Is that correct?
And that they will be coming, that will be a status item on the upcoming board meeting agendas.
Yes, thank you. That advice 314 will not be reissued, and the comments were presented to leadership, Brian Vance, about the type of response. Then the protocols discussion, the action item is follow up with a discussion between the tri-party agencies with a path forward. And in the beginning, the workforce engagement was the next steps on discussing an opportunity for a tour. So those are the action items, Madam Chair.
Rose.
Yeah, I want to make sure that Chris's comments do not get lost, that the discussion with regards to certain protocols and whatnot should not be happening in a vacuum of the tri-party only. It needs, it's about this board. This board has set some of its own limitations and guidelines and such, and as far as how it's going to operate. And so I feel like it needs to be included in those conversations. Personally, I don't want to come here to the next meeting in February and have the tri-party say, okay, this is how it's going to be without any input from the board, because I don't feel like that meets the intent of why this board is and how this board operates. So I want to make sure that you are making absolute sure that what Chris said, I totally support that. Okay. And I think yesterday we heard from a lot of people that whether or not there was one or two voices at the table, everybody still had, each seat only had one vote. And there were a lot of people who were very open to that possibility of being able to get the ideas from whoever is attending. We don't always have the best attendance. And so whether or not you happen to, have one person or two people from a particular entity that is sitting at the table and voicing and giving input, what I heard was that, the more ideas that we can put out there, the more people who have input and whatnot, and that can add to the conversation, the better the conversation will be. And so I really think that you need to think about the spirit in which those conversations would be happening around this table, and whether or not you're going to limit certain people from being able to speak, because simply because there's two people from one entity sitting at the table. Lorraine and I both have very different expertise. And as I stated yesterday, I was put on this board. I was selected for this board through Yakima Nation process. The tribal chairman signed on the dotted line and said, yes, we want Rose Ferry to be on this board, to be speaking for Yakima Nation as well as Lorraine. And so to tell me that if she's here that I have to wait and speak, as a member of the public, that is not going to fly. So I really hope that you guys will take into consideration what I think the majority of people around here were saying, is that, does that really matter? I mean, you still only have one voice, and the point of it is to get ideas and to generate thoughts and whatnot. And so I do want you to keep that into consideration. And I hope that you are not going to be making some kind of overarching decision that affects this entire board in a vacuum without talking to us.
And
Thank
I
you.
will just recap that yesterday, and Jacob, I see your sign, that there were several themes that surfaced from that conversation. One is the areas of subject matter expertise that a board member versus alternate might be presenting, and how to make sure that is not lost. There was a comment about looking at the framework that exists and what are the possibilities within that framework to make sure that that area of expertise is not lost. And also there was thoughtful and extensive discussion on the role of alternates and committee leadership. And again, it tied off to areas of expertise. So that is something that is going back to the agencies.
That is correct. Now, I did take extensive notes yesterday regarding the comments, and Ryan and I committed to continue conversations after this meeting. Now, with that being said, there are overarching guidance that we are required to follow, such as FACA and the EMSSAB charter. And so it's incumbent upon me to ensure that we are operating within those guidelines. And so I've heard all of the comments, and we will continue the conversations, and I'm hopeful that we'll have an update for you prior to the February meeting.
Jacob.
Well, I'm not quite sure where we are on the agenda and if I'm contributing to it or not, but I would like to contribute discussion if we can keep going for just a second. And my main contribution is to encourage you to think about this last year. If you've been on the board for the year, I've been on the board 5 years, and this last year was the least pleasant to me because the overwhelming majority of the time we spent quibbling over how the HAB does business. I know, because I'm in the non-union, non-management employee representative, a lot of things going on that you do not know, and I'm surprised that the HAB doesn't know. I mean, the DOE spending billions of dollars here, and we're sort of blind because we're spending all of our time worrying about how we do business and not what's going on with the Hanford site. And that, like I say, that's made this the least pleasant year for me because I really want to hear what's going on the Hanford site, learn more about it. So I would just encourage you to, the faster we can get through this stuff, the sooner we can get on to the HAB's real business, real mission, da-da-da-da-da-da. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Jacob. And I just wanted to follow up on Jacob's his comment that the charge to the board is to provide that policy level advice to the tri-party agencies. And I am really striving to ensure that we are bringing those proper briefings to those subcommittees to allow the groups to get the information that they need to then form your issue manager teams and work through the advice process. Looking at the Hanford.gov website, the board provided one piece of policy level advice in 2023. And so I'm hopeful that with 6 opportunities for advice in FY24, that we can increase that number. So I'm here to support the advice development process, and I'm hopeful that as we continue through the year, we can get back to having these robust meetings with lots of advice coming forward. I really appreciate that.
On the note of committee agendas, we are working on a process. So I've developed a list of topics that come up, and it's a worksheet. I'm coordinating with Lindsay to say, here's different topics that have been presented. We're starting to try and map out so that there's a little bit more advance notice of when the briefings will be available to support the committees, to support the development of the IM teams that work towards advice. So we are working together. And then with the other agencies, while DOE has the lead responsibility for briefings, but working together, and we'll be talking about those with the, that'll be discussed with the Executive Steering Committee. Susan has made a committed effort to have scheduled monthly ESC meetings so that emerging topics can be discussed in a timely manner and allow the groups to get the work of Hanford into their hands in a meaningful way. So that's.
Yes, this is truly a collaborative process. So I encourage you to reach out with any questions that you may have.
Or ideas.
Or ideas.
Yes. And then to follow up, the action items from just now is during the committee briefings, we had a request from Rebecca to provide handouts on the advice from, bring forward health and safety advice into the next meeting. And that from Chris, consider reformulating the operations groups work group. And if we have time, we can do a quick round robin on Rob Davis's feedback from last meeting. So those are all the action items. Any other potential topics, or shall we move on to Jeff? Oh, and Chuck, sorry.
Go ahead, Chuck.
That Chuck, this Chuck.
Yes.
And I was talking to Lindsay earlier. Quite honestly, the dynamics of this group are weird to me. And I think you have folks like Ms. Burke who has an approach to this. I don't understand. I also don't know Ms. Burke at all. And one of the suggestions I made, and this may be way premature, is we've got to know each other as people to some extent. I don't know that I'm not listening to you. And I don't feel you're listening to me, and we're not really hearing each other, right? I have experiences on the Hanford site that nobody here shares, but Rich has the same thing. And Rob has the same thing. And Ms. Burke, you may have the same thing. I don't know, right? So I don't know how we get beyond the statements phase of stuff. It's like, I label you as a statement because this is what I've heard you say. I can be labeled the same way. But somewhere, if we've come up with one piece of advice for 2023, I'll be honest, my fellow council members, the word we use when we say HAB is time suck. It sucks up a lot of time and it gives nothing back. And that's what it feels like, right? But I think it's that way because we don't know each other and we don't know where we're coming from. There are agendas out there that I don't understand, and I have agendas that y'all don't understand. So I hate to do group hugs, but group hugs may be the thing that gets us past where all we're doing is showing up for 2 days at eating Susan's cookies, which are outstanding, by the way. Something of that nature as a committee of get together and get past each other's labels, I guess.
Yes, I'm seeing some responses, Brian, and Tom has a comment.
So thanks for raising the elephant in the room. I chatted with a few people about just from an organizational development perspective, there's been a lot of interesting observations around sort of validating versus invalidating environments, the psychological safety of this group and how they behave with one another. And I think Chuck's raised it in the framework of where is that foundation of trust that then leads to belonging, that then allows the group to work through productive versus unproductive conflict. And I think that's really what we're striving towards, is being able to work through that constructive controversy where people have the same information, they have the same understanding of the intent and the values, and they can work healthily through creating, taking two different ideas and creating something even better than somebody could independently on their own. I'm curious if there's space and interest, and if it works within the structure, to assign a small work group, a task force, whatever you want to call it, to look at what does board engagement look and feel like, do some surveys and some analysis, and sort of set a goal for what is the aspirational climate of this group. How do they want to do business? And start reframing some of these things of, I don't think it's a healthy discussion to say we need to limit ourselves with the alternates. What I heard yesterday is this is the only board that has alternates. A more healthy version of that discussion is how do you extract the brilliance out of those people through facilitation, breakout sessions, restructuring of the agenda, or creating new opportunities to lean into those voices. I'm just curious if there's appetite to get some folks in a room and have that conversation and figure out where this could go. What could the board support and get behind? And I'll self-volunteer that I'm happy to do the surveying and the analysis and that work.
I'll volunteer that I'm willing to let you.
So as a process person in the organizational development, there's a little cycle of forming, storming, norming, performing. That's not a credo I live by, but there are different elements. And I think that there have been good faith efforts to try and tap into that. Tom, Cecilia has been an advocate, and Mia has reached out and scheduled a social meeting beforehand. The idea of, the equivalent of an IM team for board engagement. Let's see what the appetite is for that, right? And also, just as an aside, right now, it looks promising that we could perhaps use the meeting space over at CBC College across the street for February. When we are at a hotel facility, it's very challenging for us to bring in like our own coffee urns and other than minimal, the cookie trays. So maybe we could make the environment a little more welcoming, whether that's the right answer or not, but exploring what those options are is certainly a possibility. So thank you for raising that. And Rebecca.
Did you want to see what
Well,
the group was thinking?
well, let's hear are you weighing in on this? Oh, yes, go ahead, please do.
So yeah, I've been a big advocate for the team building for the HAB, and I've been on the HAB for a number of years, as is, a couple of other people on the board here. I liked your analogy of your forming, storming, norming. I think there's also, phases of grief, and I feel like I've gone through some phases of grief with this board over the, past 20 some years. And, we've had in the past chairs who have done team building during our meetings, and we actually got to know people We got to know who the person was sitting next to us. We did things after the board meetings. We've had quite a few cheerleaders on this board in the past that, really took the time and the effort to put together some kind of just, hey, you know what, everybody want to meet afterwards, go have a drink or go have appetizers, play games. We used to play Hab Jeopardy. Just things like that. We played Todd Martin. I remember when I first started on this board, Todd was the chair. We played Hab Twister, which, you knew not to wear a dress. They put out a notice, don't wear a dress, for this Hab meeting. Just things like that, doing just icebreakers. And I also feel like, we have really cut down on the number of meetings, in-person meetings, committee meetings. You're not going to get a whole lot of advice when the committees aren't meeting like they used to. It's hard to formulate a piece of advice when you see your committee members, twice a year, and then you see them at a full board meeting. It's really hard to collaborate with people in that kind of a setting, even if you're just doing it by email or on a phone call. We had the leadership that used to be called the EIC. I don't know what we're called now, but we used to always meet the night before a HAB meeting. We would meet and talk about the issues or the triumphs that we had during the year, and just meet socially and talk about what things that we could do better, how we could get people more involved. And I love your idea, Brian. I love that idea. I feel like there's been a real disconnect, over the last few years, and that whole scenario with the alternates and, being members of the public. And I just honestly feel like, why would you even apply? Why would you even apply if they're going to tell you, well, you're on the board, you've gone through this whole process, you've been vetted, but you're just a member of the public? It's baffling to me, I guess. And so anyhow, somehow we could do some kind of team building, or maybe I'm a party planner, so if anybody's got any ideas, I'm happy to take those and run with them.
All right, here's what I would like to propose. We want to hear comments. So I've got Chris, Rob, and Steve. And what I'd like to do then is ask for a show of hands, and like full disclosure, I'm actually an introvert. Oh, these social things just kill me. But so I would like people to just share, and we're going to ask for, you can pass, or who supports this general idea, and then maybe who would like to help create the team. That's what I'm thinking right now, but let's hear what's in the space right now. Chris and Rob and Steve. And then we were checking online. Yes, Tom has a comment too, but Chris.
Yeah. This kind of addresses your comment of a few minutes ago. It's kind of a off the cuff thing, but 10 or 15 years ago, the board put out a white paper on its values and its interest. And I made this suggestion once before, I'll make it again. Maybe it's time to relook at that white paper and reformulate it again. What are our values? What are our interests? What is the board about? The things that you brought out in your comment, along with the more technical aspects of what are our interests, what are our values. But maybe it's time to take a look at that again with an IM team with a totally new membership. Because, as I said, that white paper is now 10 or 15 years old, maybe older than that. I don't remember exactly when it was put out. But maybe it's time to take a look at that with new eyes, new membership. And we're in a different age than we were 10 to 15 years ago. And we're in a different phase of cleanup than we were 10 to 15 years ago as well. And we're going to be in a different phase of cleanup going forward for the next 50 years. So maybe it's time to relook at that white paper again as part of this discussion and as part of whatever path we decide to go forward on.
All right, Rob?
It's all DOE's fault. Yes. Though, the thing is the kind of in a nutshell is the restructuring of this board. We have almost 1/3 less meetings in all of our committees and all of our efforts that we do. We don't see each other that often. And I think that became one of the issues. You see, maybe that people alienate others or whatever. Um, I'm kind of frustrated in that, yeah, we need to get more advice out. We need to work hard to do it. But we also have these new ways of doing it. And I think that was the big impediment to generating advice last year. You know, we tried to start last January with a grout type of advice, and we couldn't get anything going because we were in the mode of restructuring. And so now that we're restructured, we meet what we meet. I think that we just go ahead and continue on. I think having a good common phone list and our committee member, my contacts with the various people in the committees, you know, committee chairs, you got to do that. You got to talk to the people offline and find out what we're interested in. So my only comment is that in the end is that this is a result of restructuring and the lower meetings, and we have to make up for it if we want the board to continue. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, I do believe that it was a part of the restructuring efforts, and I also, with the pandemic, I think that the board typically in the past had people that have been here a long time, were very comfortable with each other, and it was clear that it was easier to embrace new folks, and quite frankly, in this last year, and now as I look around the table, there's a lot of new people that feel a little bit separated from those of us that get a little cliquish. So I have to apologize if somebody hasn't been here a long time, but I've been around for 3 years, and unfortunately, the first 2 were just done on Zoom. So I still feel like there is a greater upside potential to getting back to, you know, seeing Susan come in and speak on behalf of her efforts over the 20-year period she was at the helm was really nice to see, and just trying to throw support that everybody's here for the same reasons. I do believe, though, to comments, you know, that you've made, Brian, about if we're able to get to know each other and understand the values and the experiences that we're each bringing to the table, I think it does make for a healthier conversation about why there are differences and how we can question those differences and at least understand perspective that may be technical and may not be completely technical. I think that DOE is clearly wanting us not to be in the weeds. Several of us are here absolutely because we love being in the weeds, but it does take the balance of all of us from different perspectives and our own experiences to kind of come up with what we represent, which is public. Now, I do think that yesterday, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it, last night's conversations with the public was great, and having all of those shoulder to shoulder subject matter experts was awesome. I do think that there's a lot that we can accomplish. We just need to get on with it because like Jacob said, I just really want to talk about risk mitigation and risk management, how we're going to do this, and DOE's interested in hearing from us, and I think we have an important role to fulfill. Hopefully we can get through some of the uncomfortable segments that we're feeling right now. But as a whole, I think it's a group of people that all have the right ideas in mind. Let's get the biggest bang for our buck, and let's reduce risk to the public. Thanks.
I am going to move to Rose, and then Tom has a different, so we're going to close to Rose. We have one more item to address before the close of the meeting. So I'm not sure that we're going to get to a round robin on the Hanford dialogue. Rose, please go ahead, and then we'll turn to the chair and see what our question of interest will be. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say I agree with a lot of what folks were saying. I too like to plan parties, so yeah, we should do more of that. And Brian, you've made comments today and yesterday that I totally agreed to. I think it comes down, what I heard you say yesterday anyway, I felt like it was coming down. Really, people, I mean, can we choose our battles here? I mean, why are we falling on the sword over something that should that really be of issue, as far as with alternates and that type of thing? And I think that you didn't say that. I'm just saying that's kind of was my takeaway. Like, we really need to look at this of what are the important factors, and we do need to build relationships, and we do need to get to know each other. And I want to remind people that when the meeting was held in Yakima Nation put an invite out, and we hosted everybody to come up to our museum, and we had a private tour. That person stayed late that night to give everybody a private tour. We paid for a dinner for people. And I got to say, I was a little bit disappointed that we had less than half of the membership that actually came down. And we provided transportation, by the way. I mean, we took a lot of effort. And the goal was, number one, to get board members to understand who Yakima Nation is by going through our museum and looking at some of that history. But then on top of that, to share a meal with us. And we paid for that, for people to come in and share a meal with us. And we had people come in, we had the swan dancers come in, and we had a couple of different things that went on for people to get a better idea who Yakima Nation is and to accept our hospitality. And it was very disappointing, I mean, we had less than half the membership that came to the museum, and only, I think there were like 3 or 4 people that actually then stayed and had the meal with us, and we had planned for more people. So I feel like when those opportunities are out there, people need to grab hold of those and accept that generosity. We went through a lot of trouble to try and make that happen, and it was a little bit disappointing. And maybe it was because people had to go to Toppenish. I don't know what the reasoning behind it was, but I do know that working with Yakima Nation, certainly one of the biggest things that I've learned is relationship building is very important. And, I don't want to see you for the first time when we're sitting across the table talking about an issue. I need to see you for the first time when it's a meet and greet, when we're getting to know each other. And that, I mean, and Yakima Nation is very big on that. People will ask me, well, how do I work with the tribe? You build a relationship with the tribe. I mean, you build a relationship with the people that you're working with. So I feel like there's a lot of truth to that, and I feel that that is certainly something that we should make the time for to do. But the one other thing that I will say that I definitely agree with is it is very difficult to try and get things done when you're only meeting a couple times a year. I know we've got busy schedules. I'm working 2 jobs. I've got 2 jobs right now with Yakima Nation. And so I'm really, really busy. I appreciate busy schedules. But I don't know why meetings were cut down the way they were, but it's impossible to get things done when you're not meeting, when you're not engaging with each other to try and get anything out. Yes, we had some restructuring, but we tried to do all of that and still was not meeting very often. And I think if we're serious about this, and if we're serious about really wanting to get some advice out, then we really need to consider how often we're meeting, and is that really adequate in order for us to do the job that we would feel good about doing, and the work that needs to come out of this group. Because I don't think it is. I think that there needs to be more engagement, whether it be committees and the full board, all of the above. I think we need to really seriously look at that, because I think that's an issue.
And that, I think, piggybacks or ties to Chris Sutton's comment about the operations group, the social element. We are going to conclude this conversation with 2 last speakers. Tom is the alternate filling in for Maxwell today. And Tom, we're going to open your mic and then turn to Pam Larson. And I'm going to take a 30-second pause after that for next steps. And we will then hear from Jeff Wyatt. Yeah, okay. And then Lindsay. Go ahead, Tom.
Max is actually at the table. I just put my
sorry
in chat, so I'm not allowed to talk.
Go ahead. Just say your thoughts, and we will go to Pam and then Lindsay. Thank you. I didn't see that.
I'm just saying, team building takes some time, and that means that people need to be willing to put in that time. I know there's a big push me pull you right now with number of meetings and number of HAB events, but if you want a community, you have to work to make that community. February is our 30th anniversary, and we should have an evening event since EPA wants evening events. Let's have an evening event to celebrate our 30th anniversary and make some social engagements here.
Okay, thank you. Pam?
One of the ways that we engage with each other, we used to meet at the Richland Library. And there are a variety of places to have lunch in the vicinity of the Richland Library. And people went and had lunch and talked to each other. I don't know where I'd go have lunch in this location. I'm not familiar with it. And I think you should look at the Richland Library for future meetings. And maybe you can't because you've got to do the Eagle or whatever it is, but put it in a friendly location. The other thing, frankly, is that the things that we really want to talk about are behind closed doors. And I understand that there's a process that has to be gone through, but it's getting tiresome. And, you know, it's time for whatever the hell is holding it up to deal with it and bring it back into the public. So that's where I'm at. I'm concerned about a lot of stuff. And I know the tri-parties are working on it, but has it been 3 years or something? I mean, it's time for us to know.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. In addition to social elements and operating, the other operational considerations, number of meetings, the other piece that we're hearing is content. So presentations, what gets us to IM. With that, Lindsay?
Sure. I just am taking a look at our calendar for FY24, and there are meeting placeholders from January through June, with July as an off month. So as far as the department is concerned, we're happy with the cadence of meetings. We're working really hard to make sure that those meetings are robust, that the groups are getting great briefings. I think in September, Rob, you had 3 briefings come to the Tanks Committee. So we're trying to maximize the time that we do have as far as meetings go, and to ensure that you are receiving that proper information. So we're hearing that, you know, the board eats up a lot of your time, so we're trying to give you what you need.
So, and again, we're in a period of transition. I think that there are opportunities for improvement, some of which are already being looked at. I would like to pause just for a quick break. Don't get up. I need just a moment of aside to talk to Susan and Lindsay. I'll be right back. So rule number 1 in facilitation is that the facilitator never makes the decisions. We were scheduled to break at 11:15. Both talked to Lindsay and Susan, so I hope, Brian, this is okay. If we break at 11:30, that gives us the typical hour and a half lunch break, and we're hoping that we can add in a quick round robin on the Hanford dialogue. So with that, to the pleasure of the chair, should we ask a question about the level of interest from the HAB about expanding, the team building opportunities and who might want to be involved with it? What would be the right next step? What do you sense? Brian, please do.
I'm not suggesting creating a team to examine team building activities.
I thought you said work group.
Right, a work group.
Well,
I'm suggesting a work group to take a very deep, intentional look at the culture of the HAB, what its aspirational culture would be through surveys, analysis, engaging with others to figure out what team building and belonging and trust looks like for this group. It will look different for other groups, and it depends on the resources that are available and the existing meeting structure and those things. I'm talking about designing something based on the people in the room, thinking through what's been done in the past, successes, best practices. I would not diminish it and say it's just looking at team building.
I think this goes back to Susan and Dan's comment, so spirit of it, wrong word, apologies. Susan, what would be the next best step for a general sense on what exactly Brian just presented and level of interest and maybe a next step of how that happens?
Brian, it's a wonderful idea. I would like to go offline and you, me, and Mia, and kind of flush it out a little bit and bring it to the February board meeting with a proposal. Does that make sense? Good. There you go.
Right, and I have heard multiple comments supportive of the concept in general, and Brian, you've helped flesh out what that concept embodies, and I think Susan is saying, let's take some time to develop a more specific proposal and take it forward. Is that right?
Yeah, because there are some people that are strategic planners and there are some people that are wired tactically. And so we're kind of talking abstract to a great right now. I like the idea. I want to engage everybody. I want to provide the opportunity for everyone to engage at their level of expertise, comfort, whatever. But let's flesh it out a little bit and then come back with with the concrete. Okay.
All right,
And this will probably be on the agenda to talk about with the ESC at the next meeting. So nobody's going to get left out. Yes, thank you.
So we have our chair and our vice chair going to meet with Brian and discuss potential surveys and other things. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
And then, like I said, Rob, we'll bring it back to the ESC and to the full board meeting in February and everything. It's just kind of,
right.
Everybody's time is valuable.
But I think it's important that people and the board know that it's the chair and the vice chair that are going to do this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and Jeff, we're coming to you. So we have the slide up. We're now on the final agenda item as the agenda was developed. So status update on the IM team for the fiscal year 26 cleanup priorities.
Okay, I'm sure you've all been waiting for this moment, the highlight of the meeting today for sure. Okay, the cleanup priorities IM team, our mission is to develop consensus advice for Hanford's 2026 cleanup priorities in response to DOE's 2023 to 28 5-year plan and the TPA milestones. So this graphic kind of shows what the process is, what it's supposed to be. The TPA and DOE develop plans and milestones, and we look at those in the IM team and develop draft advice that then goes to the HAB committees, the individual HAB committees, and then the HAB itself. So we're on our right now third round of reviewing comments and ideas this afternoon. What you see there is a list of topics or issues that the IM team is evaluating for cleanup priorities. So far, we've had something on the order of 150, 160 different comments. So trying to correlate and collate all those comments and bring them together into, you know, the final wording of 15 to 20 specific issues or priorities is the work that we're doing. Our schedule right now is we hope to have by the end of this month a fairly comprehensive draft that we can then share with the individual committees and then come back to the HAB with a more or less final piece of advice or proposed final piece of advice in February. So that's really the update on the work of this IM team. Any questions or comments?
And again, at 1 o'clock, People who are interested can stay for the IM team discussion. We are working on a printout. The IM team received a consolidated list. Jeff consolidated the comments. We're working on printing those, so if you weren't on the IM team, we'll make sure everybody has, we're working on making sure that everybody has a hard copy. Any questions on the IM team and fiscal year cleanup? Okay. Okay, Chris?
When we break and we come back, is this room going to be rearranged? In other words, is it okay to leave our stuff here?
It is
Or
okay.
should we take it?
What we're going to really do is narrow and probably cluster down towards one end for discussion, but we will stay online. People online, if you want to remain on this call, we will mute the line. We will stop recording, but this line is what we will be using for online participation in the IM team. Does that conclude this item? Okay. So based on the recommendation, what we're proposing is that we do a quick round robin within the next 15 minutes. So it would be, you know, the takeaways, feedback on the Hanford dialogue session last night. So Rob, do you want to kick us off? I know you shared some ideas. Okay, go ahead. And if you want to weigh in and you were there last night, please put your tent up. If you want to pass, or if you weren't there, please feel free to leave it down.
Well, my basic feedback is that the right people were there at the meeting, and that was really good. And I appreciated it. Maybe I wish there were a few more handouts, you know, that I could take home with me to. That's about it. Next.
It was really great having the people with the right knowledge level, I guess, to come up with any questions. I asked a question about the test bed initiative and had a great discussion. The pump and treat things that they're doing out there, a little bit more detail on, you know, what that really means and what it's trying to accomplish. The people that were involved in the discussion, very energetic. So it was very much appreciated. I think the only thing negative is that they need to put up some partitions in between the groupings because there was so much background noise. Sometimes it was hard to hear the people that are talking in the individual group settings.
Rebecca?
Yeah, I thought it was good. Ryan, you were the best facilitator ever. It was actually good to see the other Ryan from Enviro Issues last night. I hadn't seen him for a long time. Used to be a facilitator for the HAB. I also agree, yeah, partitions would be good. I thought the space was a lot better than the last time that you guys did it because the background noise at that one was really loud. You couldn't hear anything. I am a little disappointed, though, I have to say. There was an email sent out about people wanting to volunteer for a HAB table or booth there. And I said I would volunteer for our committee. And then later I was told that the HAB wasn't going to have a table or a booth. And and I'm not exactly sure why, what the whole reason for that was, but I think it'd be valuable for the HAB to have a table or a booth there.
So to respond to that, Becky, federal funding cannot be used for the purpose of solicitation, be it for funding, membership, or contributions. And so we could not confirm that would not happen. So that's why there were no tables.
Can I just make a quick comment? I guess I don't really understand that. It's not like we were going to be there to do a membership drive, you know, hand out pamphlets and, hey, you know, come join our team. So that's a little bit fuzzy for me.
We can talk more offline.
Yes.
Okay.
Come find me, please, afterwards.
Mia?
I thought it was a great opportunity. I hope that there are more in the future. I hope that there are regional ones. And I also hope, like Becky said, that the HAB and other stakeholder organizations and interest groups are allowed to join and table beforehand. I recommend having a waiver for all of us to sign, and then you just wash away all of those issues with recruitment and fundraising. I did want to ask, actually, so the information that went out in English and Spanish, and it said that for language accessibility, you would have to let you all know 10 days ahead of time. After having gone to the event, I can't imagine how someone could have been there as a Spanish speaker only and been able to participate or understand everything that was going on. Would they have had a personal interpreter? So I think just moving forward, really thinking through those things. Some of the things were even hard for me to hear because of everything that was going on in the room. It was a small space. So just really taking that into consideration before you're inviting Spanish speakers, solely Spanish speakers, to come to events like this.
Thank you. Rose?
Yeah, I thought it was a good event. I agree with what folks were saying as far as like the partitioning, because it did, especially if you were in the middle, then you had conversations on both sides of you. So to me, that was a bit challenging. I do agree with the potential of maybe doing a waiver so that folks can put tables up. It's a public meeting. It's an opportunity for the public to be able to come and be able to potentially get information on some of the various groups that participate in this advisory board, that maybe they wouldn't normally have that opportunity to have any information from those people. So I think that DOE needs to find a way to be able to make that happen. If it's a waiver, that sounds like a great idea of being able to do that. Yakima Nation would probably like to put a table out so that we've got brochures that we would want to hand out, and assure you they're not going to be soliciting, membership. So we wouldn't have to worry about that. So anyway, I think we really need to kind of open that door for that opportunity to be able to give out information. A couple of things that I didn't feel worked really well, and that is because you were doing these small groups and the conversations that each of these small groups were having when the new group came in, they were just flipping over the sheet to keep track of questions. So I never got to see with the two groups before me what questions they may have had, what comments, any of the notes. So if there's a way that those can be torn off and put up so people could kind of be able to see what the previous discussion was, because sometimes that will help generate additional conversation. So that would be one thing that I would do differently. And the other thing I would really like to remind everybody who participates and is talking in those panels when they're up there is what you don't say is can be very detrimental. You want to make sure that the information that you're giving is accurate, number one, but also that you're not omitting critical information. And I'm going to give you an example. If you're going to talk about the 300 area and say, yeah, we're cleaned up there, the only thing we've got left there is the 324 building. Well, that's not exactly accurate, because there's a 61811 waste site that's, burial ground that's still within the 300 area. And there were a couple of those little things that happened where information was just simply omitted. But the people who were listening to that, when they walk away from that, they think, oh, it's just the 324 building, and they have a certain ideology. There were inaccuracies on information that was put out about that as well. I corrected a couple of those. But the point being is that if you're going to talk to the public, you want to make sure that you're giving them you don't have to go into detail, but you want to make sure you're certainly giving them appropriate information that better reflects what's going on out there, and you're not omitting key things like, this whole, burial site that still needs to be contended with that was omitted. And that was just like, say, that's just one example of a couple of others that happened at the different stations. But other than that, I feel it's a great opportunity for the public to be able to be engaged and to be able to even have side conversations with members of the HAB and other folks who have other areas of expertise. I did have our opportunity to talk to a few people, so that was good.
Okay, thank you. And James?
Yeah, I just want to, I mean, it was good. I would caution, don't let, perfect be the enemy of the good. It was good. Okay, so I mean, we can make better, we can do all sorts of things, but it was quite good. Although I do say alcohol would have helped.
Chuck?
Well, just real quickly, um, if it's a Monday or Tuesday night, you're going to miss at least one, if not three, city councils. So if you want electeds there, we're not going to make it. And we may not need to make it, but Monday night is Pasco. West Richland, Richland, and Kennewick are all on Tuesday nights. And so that wipes that out, just to let you know.
I'll just share that was an oversight and planning. That's not going to happen again.
Um, it's, oh, use the microphone, please. Yes, okay, thank you.
Come on, there we go. Yeah, good event. I enjoyed it very much. I wasn't sure what to expect there. Informative, the people were informative. Now, what I did was I sat in on one session that was looking forward to the future session. And I sat in 3 times because I wanted to hear what the different groups would say, would come up with for observations and questions. And so Rose, your thing about putting up the answers on, like on, paper, I think is a very good, very appropriate, very good thing to do there. I had pretty good luck in hearing what was going on, or perhaps it was a positioning of the session vis-a-vis the other sessions there. But for me, the acoustics were okay. I'll just leave it at that. I do hope we can do some more Hanford dialogues, but a lot of, it's a work in progress. I'm sure there'll be better things coming up as we go around the table here.
All right.
Over.
Pam and then Steve?
It was a wonderful opportunity to see and talk to people that we hadn't seen and talked to in a long time. And I think the informal conversations were excellent opportunities, as well as the more structured conversations. And I was really pleased with the turnout. And I know you guys made a lot of effort to make that happen. And so periodically, I think it's a really good thing to do. We did one years ago on the waste treatment plant. And we had the opportunity to invite people that work on that project that don't get to talk to each other because they're different companies. A friend of mine was very involved with the design of law, and the finishing of law is a different company, and she's never had an opportunity to go back and see what she designed. So I think keeping the workforce in mind as we put something together so that they have an opportunity to talk to each other as well as regulators and the public is really rewarding. So thank you.
Okay, Steve.
Yeah, I agree with what everybody has said here. I thought it was well attended, and I did appreciate that they took lessons learned from the last time and decided that it wouldn't be a lecture format, it would be a two-way dialogue. So I think that that was a tremendous adjustment, because the participation by just your general audience members, I thought, brought apart conversations that were excellent for all of us to hear. I do think that it did provide the sidebar conversations in between for everybody to kind of get to know each other a little bit better. So beyond just, have mingling members, the general public, but the SMEs were great. And it was nice to have them here, even for after, in between dialogue conversations that were very enlightening. And I think a little less threatening. You're not getting up in front of a group. You can say whatever stupid thing you want to say, and they were very cordial and accepting of those conversations. I did want to say here that I thought that the breakout session group structure was good, but the acoustics were a little bit difficult for everybody. But if you placed yourself in the right chair at the right spot, it worked pretty well. And if they could maybe just shorten the introductions up front. It's great to have an introduction. Yes, I am Brian Vance. That's wonderful. And I like the fact that everybody had, but didn't need to be as drawn out. I would have loved to have a little bit more time and attention to the breakout sessions for maybe 25 minutes as opposed to 20. I think that would have been good. I did make a plug for HAB when we got comments from people in the follow-up at the very end that said, gosh, please travel abroad. There's a lot larger regions that would love to have this, which I think they absolutely should do. But they said there would be a certain number of people were interested in more around the Tri-Cities. And I said, well, you all have the opportunity to come and talk and listen to HAB meetings that occur on a more regular basis. And he even came up afterwards and said, yeah, that's great to know. So we weren't at a booth, but at least we got a plug. So thanks.
And as somebody who went last night, I thought it was great that there was a question and answer period, so it wasn't presentation. And good turnout. So I know it was well publicized, and thinking about that when there are evening HAB meetings, what that looks like. It was quite challenging to hear. And for example, I think it was Mark who very soft spoken. And then you had other people who were were projecting well. And if anybody, you all have to have meetings in sometimes space that is less than optimal. One of the things that, here's a little trick of the trick, the way that the room was set up is that people were in different corners and the flip charts and the speakers were in the corners but facing each other. If you put the people in the middle and they're talking to the corners, it helps break up the sound, because if you're in the middle, like everybody's talking at you, and sometimes you can just flip that so the presenters are like standing closer and out, and it does help, because we all know that sometimes you've just got to make do with the space you have, right? And what we have. But it was great. I thought good turnout, and again, right people in the room, all the answers that I heard, and I'm on a learning curve. It sounded like the information was helpful, and I heard Rose's comment that maybe there were some omissions, and I saw a lot of people there from in this room. It was great. And with that, Susan, do we have any concluding, Mia, do you want to, any concluding thoughts for the meeting today? We're about to adjourn.
Thank you for the discussion, everyone, and I'll pass it to Lindsay.
Okay.
I echo Mia's comment. Thank you again for the robust discussion over the past 2 days, and this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.